And let's see.
I was thinking I would be the first one today. I was so happy. But you guys have already beat me.
Okay, that's on that happy note. Let's get started. After this, be prayers to the spiritual master. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjan Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padkamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So which verse are we going to do today? Do we remember? It's been a very long break.
523, Mataji.
523, yes.
523 for 500 points, correct. Okay, so let me bring up 523 and close some of the things that I have open here. Just give me a second, I should have done that before. It's a very, 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 I cannot emphasize enough, important verse and carries a lot of potency for us here. So just bear with me as I close all these millions of windows that are open throughout the day. Okay. Bhagavad-gita 5.23. Coming up on a screen close to you. Please kindly confirm that you're able to see it.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. 5.23. śaknotīhaiva yah soḍhuṁ prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ vegam yuktaḥ sukhī naraḥ śaknotīhaiva yah soḍhuṁ prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ vegam yuktaḥ sukhī naraḥ śaknotīhaiva yah soḍhum prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ vegam yuktaḥ sukhī naraḥ. Let's look at the words. So śaknoti. Śaknoti means is able. So we also see in those who speak Hindi, we say nahi kar sakti, kar sakte hain, right? Nahi kar sak pari. So that is coming from śaknoti in Sanskrit. Śaknoti that becomes deformed and becomes sak, like that in the Hindi language. So śaknoti means is able. Iha eva. Iha eva means here, where you are in this present body. So iha eva, in the present body. Yaha, one.
Hare Krishna.
Soḍhum, to tolerate. Prāk before, śarīra, the body, vimokṣaṇāt, giving up, kāma, desire, krodha, in anger, udbhavam, generated from, vegam, urges, saha, he, yuktaḥ, in trance, saha, he, sukhī, happy, naraḥ, human being. Right? So, let's look at the translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay.
Translation. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. So, if one is able to, what is the Sanskrit of if one is able to?
Śaknoti.
Śaknoti, correct.
Śaknoti.
Śaknoti, right? Okay. And what is the Sanskrit for tolerating?
Soḍhuṁ. Soḍhuṁ.
Soḍhum. Soḍhum. Yeah,
Soḍhum.
Soḍhum, right? Hum. It is soft U. Soḍhum. Right? So it sounds like a it sounds like a very musical verse, isn't it? Word, isn't it? Soḍhum. As if there are drums beating here and there. But it's exactly the opposite of that, right? Soḍhum means that you have to tolerate. Tolerate means that, you know, you are peaceful, at least externally, like that, right? So śaknoti, soḍhum, right? And then before, what is the Sanskrit for before?
Prāk.
Prāk, right? And what is the Sanskrit for giving up?
Vimokṣaṇāt.
Vimokṣaṇāt. One is able to give up. Okay. And then vegam. What is the meaning of vegam?
Urges.
Vacho vegam.
Vacho vegam.
Right. The urges, right? The urges of what? The material senses. And check the force of desire and anger. He is well situated and is happy in this world. Who is happy in this world in Sanskrit?
Sukhī.
Sukhī naraḥ. Sukhī naraḥ, right? Sukhī naraḥ. As Vaishnav Prabhu says, it sounds like Japanese, right? Sayonara. Sukhī naraḥ. Like that. Okay, so śaknotīhaiva soḍhum prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ vegaṁ yuktaḥ sukhī naraḥ. Right? So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of the material senses. There are forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of the stomach, forces of the genitals, and forces of the tongue. One who is able to control the forces of all these different senses and the mind is called a Goswami or Swami. What is the opposite of Goswami?
No. Godas.
Godas, correct. 1000 points. Such Goswamis live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the forces of the senses. Material desires, when unsaturated, generate anger, and thus the mind, eyes, and chest become agitated. Therefore, one must practice to control them before one gives up his material body. One who can do this is understood to be self-realized and thus happy in the state of self-realization. It is the duty of the transcendentalist to try strenuously to control desire and anger. Thoughts?
Strenuously control desire and anger.
Strenuously, yeah.
Strenuously desire and control the desire and anger. That's true. It's hard to say.
What else?
tolerate urges.
Mataji, what I have realized that most important is to control the tongue. Because if you eat or if you talk more, if you cannot control the both, that have very bad effect. Desire will come less, after that, but tongue is the most important thing for me to control.
Actually, in the Updeshamrita, the very first verse of Updeshamrita that some of you were quoting today, right? Vacho vegam, manasa kodre,
Yeah.
vegam, etan vegaṁ yo vijahira, sarvam vimam prashnim sashityats, right? So it starts with what?
Vacho vegam.
Vacho vegam, right? And that's the order in which it's saying that, you know, as you start to control, then the other things will continue. And in the purport for that particular words in Letter of Instruction, in Updeshamrita, Srila Prabhupada points out that he points out that, you know, the Vaso vegam, Vacho vegam, Jivya vegam, right? And Udaro past. So he says, Vacho, which is the mouth, right? Udar is the stomach, and Udarapast is something even beyond the stomach or below, lower than the stomach, right? So he's talking about the genitals. So he points out that they're all in a straight line. And one influences the other. So if you learn to control your talking and to control your speaking, then, you know, the urges of the stomach will go down. And if you don't eat more than necessary, then the urges of the genitals will also go down, like that. But yeah. So in this particular verse, śaknotīhaiva ya soḍhuṁ, prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt, kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ, right? So calm and krodha. If you remember, I'd like to take you to chapter 3 of Bhagavad-gita. And so here is talking about kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ. What was udbhavam? What's the meaning of udbhavam?
What is the meaning of? What must I say?
Udbhavam.
Generated from. Generated from.
And what is generated? What is generated?
The urge to speak.
Correct. Vegam, right?
Vegam, yeah.
So in this particular word, he's talking about krodha and kāma-krodha. So those urges are there, right? So this is a vegam, right? Veg means something that comes very forcefully to you, right? As if somebody from outside is controlling you and making you do all those things, right? So if you go to Bhagavad-gita chapter 3, and let me bring up the verses towards the end when Arjun is asking that question of Krishna, right? And he says that, Krishna, by what is one forced to take part and do sinful activities? As if I'm being forced to do that, right? And then Krishna answers that, right? So, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? What's the Sanskrit for force?
Vegam.
Vegam, right? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion. And later this lust gets transformed into wrath or krodha. So kama and krodha, which is the all-devouring, simple enemy of this world. And then he gives such a nice example. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of lust, right? So fire is covered by the smoke, but still the fire is there. There's some smoke there. The fire is able to do whatever it's supposed to do, right? Give out heat and light. But then, of course, there is some smoke over there, which is an irritant to others. So that's one level of control, right? And not being able to perform whatever you're supposed to perform. The second is as mirror is covered by dust. So a mirror is supposed to reflect the picture, right? And as the mirror is covered by dust, then it won't be reflecting the pictures properly, right? It might be able to, depending on how much dust is there on the mirror, or might not be if there's a lot big layers of dust which are there. But as mirror is covered by dust, and then he's saying as the embryo is covered by the womb. When the embryo is covered by the womb, like it's as if that you have been given boxing gloves and now you're asked to chop, cilantro. Cannot do that, right? Or to peel something, a lychee. You cannot do that. So whatever you're supposed to do, your movements are completely restricted because you're completely under the control of the womb in this case, or the vegas in our case, right? So then Krishna says, thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. And where are they? The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. The working senses, remember, are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Right? So Krishna already told where the lust is coming from, where it resides, what its effects are, different degrees by which we can be covered by lust, right? And here, if we go back and look at some of the previous verses from chapter number 5 of Bhagavad-gita, that we have been discussing in the past few weeks, right? So let's look at some of them and see what was the flow of knowledge and that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. And they were very, very powerful verses, yeah? Okay. So let me start sharing the screen. We'll start from verse number 20 of chapter 5. So he's saying, a person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the signs of God, is already situated in transcendence. Such a bewildered person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. And so now, today's verse says, before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. And if we go to chapter 2 of Bhagavad-gita, where in the 14th verse, Arjuna, is getting pretty agitated and upset about having to fight the war. And here he says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshno sukha dukkha daha agam apayniyo nityas tam sitikshasva bharata. So he's saying that, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent, again remember, non-permanent. In chapter 5 also, we said they have a beginning, adi antavanta kaunteya. They have a beginning and an end. Similar thing he's saying here. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, ocean of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Right? So here also in this particular verse, he's talking about tolerating. Right? So and as Sutapa Mataji pointed out that, tolerating the urge to speak is the most difficult thing for us to do. Right? And there are instances where their anger will arise. People will get angry, right? So one of the things about anger, and in today's purport also, Prabhupada talked about that when is angry, there are some 3 symptoms that happen, or 3 areas that get affected. What were those 3 that he was talking about in the purport?
You mean in today's verse?
Yeah. When you
Oh.
get anger, what happens? 3 things get affected. In the purport, Prabhupada is explaining. Sorry.
I mixed it. Where did I go?
Go back, find it.
5th chapter, no?
Right.
Where am I?
He's saying that you have to tolerate the urge of the senses and check yourself from desire and anger, right?
You have to control the mind.
Yeah, no, but the question is that when a person gets angry, what 3 parts get affected? That is the question.
Oh, the mind, the eyes, and the chest.
The mind, the eyes, and the chest get agitated, right? When you're
Yeah.
angry, do the people's eyes become red?
Yeah.
Right? They start breathing heavily. And
Yeah.
what to talk about the mind? The mind is completely out of control. We don't even know what we are doing, right? Like I gave the example of Michael Tyson once he was losing the game. He was a boxing champion. He was losing the game, and what did he do? He bit off the ear of his opponent, and then he was immediately disqualified. So first is that you so badly want to win the fight, and your opponent is very strong and is giving you a tough time, and you so badly want to win the game. But what did you do? Under the spurge of anger, what did you do? You did something that made sure that you would not win. You went and bit off the ear like a dog, right? And then you were disqualified. So that's what happens to the mind. And we find instances and situations where people have done the extremes and are not tolerated. And we also find that people sometimes in their own life have not tolerated, done certain things, tolerated, and then again, not able to tolerate like that, right? For example, if we take the story of Sati, okay? Story of Sati in Srimad-Bhagavatam. What's the story of Sati?
Sati Sahagam?
Sati went to her father's place with uninvited. So she couldn't, even her husband said not to go. And then later she has to face all the troubles.
Right. What was precisely the trouble?
Father also didn't let her go.
Father didn't give respect to her husband, and then she has to go to that fire to end her life.
Yeah. So there are two incidences that are clubbed together, right? Once the father insulted Shiva, right? Because Daksha is a progenitor. He's a Prajapati, so he's very powerful, right? He creates population. And so there was a yagya that was happening. Everybody was invited, including Sati and her husband, Lord Shiva. And so when Daksha entered, he was very effulgent, and everybody in the assembly stood up. But Shivji did not stand up, right? And Shivji is at a higher position than Daksha. There's no need for him to stand up. But Daksha was like, no. So he started speaking bad things about Shiva. So Shiva then left the place. And then, after that, there was no going to Sati's place. I mean, at least Shivji was not going. And then again, Daksha had another yagya and did not invite Sati. But Sati could see from her place, Mount Sarovar, where she was like, Mount Kailash, where she was staying with Lord Shiva. She could see all her sisters, etc., all dressed up nicely, and they're all going to participate in the yagya. And so she wants to go, talks to her husband, and then husband advises her not to do, and then she goes there, right? And when she goes there, her mother and her sisters are very happy to meet her, but her father ignores her, right? So that is something that Sati could not tolerate, right? And to the extent that she went and gave up the body, saying that this body came from you, dear father, I don't want to have anything to do with this body. So he gives up the body. And then, of course, there's a whole lot of things that happens afterwards, but that's besides the point, right? So that is one. Let's take the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Okay, so Dhruva Maharaj is a stepmother sitting with her husband. Her son is on the lap of the father. And then Dhruv comes and wants to sit. So who did Vachu Vegam there?
Father.
His stepmother.
The stepmother, correct, for 500 points. Father did not have any Vachu Vegam. Father did not speak. He had a mental block. But the mother spoke, right? Spoke harsh word. And did Dhruva tolerate?
Tolerate that time, but not tolerate because
No, he
complain
did,
to
because then
the-
he just go and complains to his own mother
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, so what exactly is tolerating then? Did Dhruva Maharaj tolerate the insult?
When you are not showing any reaction, that is
That
tolerated.
means he did.
Yes.
But internally?
No.
not tolerate.
No. He was hurt. That's
And then
why.
So
what
he
was
went
his,
and
what
spoke
did he
to
want
his
to do?
mother.
Yeah, what did he want to do? When he got insulted, what did he want to do? He wanted a kingdom
Revenge, a big, higher than.
better than the grandfather, right? Brahma. And it's like, what to talk about you? I want something better than your father and your father's father, like that. It's the height of, revenge. And so Dhruva Maharaj did not tolerate, he was crying. So that's not tolerating. And then he went to his mother, right? And then the same Dhruva Maharaj tolerated later on, right? When he goes, then his mother says, okay, only God can take care of you. So he starts walking out, like, where is Krishna? Where is the lotus? He's asking everybody. He goes to the jungle, right, towards Vrindavan. And he meets Narad Muni on the way, and Narad Muni tries to explain things to him. And he says that, what, these kind of things happen in families. She's your elder, so what, big deal? She said something, just, ignore it. Or, or if you think that, she shouldn't have said it because you are such a young boy, then parents do say things to young children. And then he doesn't accept that. He just says that, Narad Muni, I'm a Kshatriya. I'm out to get some revenge. I'm not, I'm not a Brahmana that I can tolerate all those. And then, Narad Muni, being the pure soul that he has influence on Dhruva Maharaj, gives him the mantra to chant. What was the mantra he asked him to chant?
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Correct. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Right, so he sits down and he chants. And I'm going to bring up Dhruva Maharaj's section from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is all listed in Canto 4, where Sati's story is also there from Canto 4. Canto 4 is full of a lot of stories where you see people tolerating and then not tolerating. So here, when he goes to the forest, and then let's look at the austerities he goes to and what all he is tolerating. Yeah, right. Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived at Madhuvan, one of the ones in Vrindavan area, took his bath in river Yamuna and observed fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in the worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days. And for his eatables, he took dry grass and leaves. Thus, he continued his worship. So, something to keep in mind here is that he's taking dry grass. So, There's a difference between dry grass and, the fresh grass. Dry grass is, it'll hurt your tongue, but that's what he's eating. In the 3rd month, he drank water only every 9 days. So 3 days, 6 days, and now 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. In the 4th month, Dhruv Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. So 3, 6, 9, and 12. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the 5th month, Dhruv Maharaj, the son of king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just as a column stands without motion, and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind, without diversion to anything else, upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When Dhruv Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation and who is the master of all living entities, the 3 worlds began to tremble. As Dhruv Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. When Dhruv Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating and his closing all the holes of his body, the total universal breathing became choked up, and all the great demigods and all planetary systems felt suffocated and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then, of course, the demigods go to the Lord, they pray to him, and then they tell, okay, the Lord explains that this is because all this is happening because of the determination of Dhruv Maharaj, who's the son of King Uttanpad, like that. And then he says, okay, I shall stop this boy in his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation. So this was the extremes of toleration that Dhruv Maharaj was doing. Because we know that when he finally sees God, when the Lord comes in front of him as Prishni Garbha, and when he sees, so the same Dhruv Maharaj who wanted to have a kingdom better than the Lord, he now goes and says that, oh, what I was asking for is just pieces of glass. The diamond is standing in front of me. I don't want anything at all. So when the God says, like, ask whatever you want to ask, But then the Lord insists and says, no, you I will still give you something. Because otherwise people will think that devotees just, pray. And then he did so much of austerities, 3rd day, 6th day, 9th day, and the 12th day. And then he wanted to get a kingdom better than his grandfather. And the Lord, he manipulated his mind and, put him in a condition where he says, now I don't want it. So he said, no, that I don't want. My reputation will be spoiled. So he still gives him the Dhruv planet, right? Later on, after his death, he rules for 35 years. So the same Dhruv Maharaj, when we see him go through these phases in life where he's agitated because of the stepmother saying things, not very conducive to him. And then he goes and performs extremes of austerities where he's able to tolerate. So what were the things that Dhruv Maharaj was tolerating on those days? While he was
belly, urges of belly.
Urges of the belly, correct, right? Basically belly, and then later on the urge to breathe also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Right. So then he visits the Lord, and then he comes back and he rules, he gets married, So then another episode happens in his life. So let's see. Let's bring up that other episode, and I think this is the one, right? So the great sage Maitreya, who's explaining this story to Vidura, thereafter Dhruv Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumar, whose name was Brahmi, and 2 sons named Kalp and Vatsara were born of her. The greatly powerful Dhruv Maharaj had another wife named Ila, who was the daughter of the demigod Vayu. By her, he begot a son named Utkal and a very beautiful daughter. Dhruv Maharaj's younger brother Uttam was still unmarried. Once went on a hunting, so this is the same younger brother, means the stepbrother. He once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful yaksha in the Himalayan mountains. Along with him, his mother Suruchi also followed the path of her son, which basically means that she also died. She actually got very upset when she heard this killing of her son, that she walked into a forest fire and that she was killed. Like that. When Dhruv Maharaj heard of the killing of his brother Uttama by the Yakshas in Himalaya mountains, being overwhelmed with lamentation and anger, he got on his chariot and went out for victory over the city of Yakshas, which is Alkapuri. Dhruv Maharaj went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley, he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. Maitri continued, "My dear Buddha, as soon as Dhruv Maharaj reached Alkapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the Yakshas became very much frightened. From their eyes, it was apparent that they were full of anxiety. O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the Yakshas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the conch shell of Dhruv Maharaj, came forth from the city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Dhruv Maharaj, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman, also immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows 3 at a time. When the heroes of the Yakshas saw that all their heads were thus being threatened by Dhruv Maharaj, they could very easily understand their awkward position, and they concluded that they would certainly be defeated. But as heroes, they lauded the action of Dhruva. Just like serpents who cannot tolerate being trampled upon by anyone's feet, the Yakshas, being intolerant of the wonderful prowess of Dhruv Maharaj, threw twice as many arrows, 6 from each of their shoulders, and they very valiantly exhibited their prowess. The Yaksha shoulders were 130,000 strong, all greatly angry and all desiring to defeat the wonderful activities of Dhruv Maharaj. With full strength, they showered upon Dhruv Maharaj, along with his chariot and charioteer, various types of feathered arrows, parighas, nistrimashas, prasashulas, paraswadhas, shaktis, rishtis, and bhujundi weapons. Dhruv Maharaj was completely covered by an incessant shower of weapons, just as a mountain is covered by incessant rainfall. All the Siddhas from the higher planetary system were observing the fight from the sky, and when they saw that Dhruv Maharaj had been covered by the incessant arrows of the enemy, they roared tumultuously. The grandson of Manu, Dhruva, is now lost. They cried that Dhruv Maharaj was just like the sun that had now set within the ocean of the Yakshas. The Yakshas, being temporarily victorious, exclaimed that they had conquered Dhruv Maharaj. But in the meantime, Dhruv Maharaj's chariot suddenly appeared, just as the sun suddenly appears from within the foggy mist. Dhruv Maharaj's bows and arrows twanged and hissed, causing lamentation in the hearts of his enemies. He began to shoot incessant arrows, shattering all the different weapons, just as the blasting wind scatters the assembled clouds in the sky. The sharp arrows released from the bow of Dhruv Maharaj pierced the shields and bodies of the enemy like the thunderbolts released by King of Heaven, which dismantled the bodies of mountains. The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Rudra, the heads of those who were cut to pieces by the arrows of Dhruv Maharaj were decorated very beautifully with earrings and turbans. The legs of their bodies were as beautiful as golden palm trees. The arms were decorated with golden bracelets and armlets. And on their heads, there were very valuable helmets bedecked with gold. All these ornaments lying on that battlefield were very attractive and could bewilder the mind of a hero. The remaining Yakshas, who somehow or other were not killed, had their limbs cut to pieces by the arrows of the great warrior Dhruv Maharaj. Thus they began to flee, just as elephants flee when defeated by a lion. Dhruv Maharaj, the best of the human beings, observed that in that great battlefield, not one of the opposing soldiers was left standing with proper weapons. He then desired to see the city of Alkapuri, but he thought to himself, no one knows the plans of the mystic Yakshas. In the meantime, while Dhruv Maharaj, doubtful of his mystic enemies, was stalking with his charioteer, they heard a tremendous sound as if the whole ocean were there. And they found that from the sky, a great dust storm was coming over them from all directions. Within a moment, the whole sky was overcast with dense clouds and severe thundering was heard. There was glittering electric lightning and severe rainfall. My dear faultless Vidura, in that rainfall, there was blood, mucus, pus, stool, urine, and marrow falling heavily before Dhruv Maharaj, and there were trunks of bodies falling from the sky. Next, a great mountain was visible in the sky, and from all directions, hailstones fell, along with lances, clubs, swords, iron, bludgeons, and great pieces of stone. Dhruv Maharaj also saw many big serpents with angry eyes, vomiting forth fire and coming to devour him, along with groups of mad elephants, lions, and tigers. Then, as if it were the time of dissolution of the whole world, the fierce sea of foaming waves and great roaring sounds came forward before him. The demon Yakshas are by nature very heinous, and by their demoniac power of illusion, they can create many strange phenomena to frighten one who is less intelligent. When the great sages heard that Dhruv Maharaj was overpowered by the illusory mystic tricks of the demon, they immediately assembled to offer him auspicious encouragement. All the sages said, dear Dhruva, O son of the Uttanpad, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead known as Sarangadhanva, who relieves the distresses of his devotees, kill all your threatening enemies. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord himself. Therefore, simply by chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, many men can be fully protected from fierce death without devotee. Thus, a devotee is saved. Of course, later on, in the next chapter, as he's getting, then his grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, is going to come and he's going to advise Dhruva Maharaj to stop fighting, right? So the same Dhruva Maharaj, right, who knew the futility of materialistic world, when his own brother dies, right, he completely lost it. So when we look at the life of Dhruva Maharaj, and we look at the verse from today, right? Today's verse says, śaknotīhaiva soḍhuṁ, prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt, right? So he's saying that there are some very key words in this verse. So what they're saying is, one is soḍhum. Soḍhum means?
Tolerate.
So soḍhum means tolerate, right? So one who just, and then you have to tolerate, and then he says, till when?
Till you give up your body.
Till you give up your body. Exactly right, right? So there is a hidden meaning in that statement. śaknotīhaiva soḍhuṁ prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt. One who learns how to do this lives happily, right? So what this verse is telling you is that the very fact that you are an embodied soul, the very fact that you are in this body, there will always be urges of the senses. Śarīra-vidya jal jodindriyatahikal, right? Jive phile vishaya sagore. Says in the prasadam prayer we say that this is a network of ignorance. So the very fact that we are here. And what are the senses doing? The senses are going and looking and seeking sense objects, presenting that information to the mind, right? In the form of desires. And the soul is urged, the vegas are urged to act on it. Okay, so this verse is telling you that, you know what? The very fact that you are in a material body, just as our Dhruva Maharaj was in a material body, right? He went through the complete set of austerities he did, he even saw God, right? But even after that, the urges came, right? There was an urge, lamentation, lost his brother, right? Whom he loved very much. Somebody killed his brother, gets angry, and mindlessly, one yaksha would have killed his brother, right? Go kill that yaksha and be balanced, right? No, I want to kill all the yakshas, completely annihilate. So that is the force, that's the vegam. Kāma-krodhodbhavaṁ vegam, right? So kama, the desire was to live happily with the brother. Brother dies. So now krodha will appear. And that vega, that force, made him do all those kinds of things. And these forces are going to come and be there till we die. So it's not that these desires are going to go away. They will keep on coming. So sometimes in our philosophical discussions, and Krishna also says, and we also say that, hey, you're not the body. And sometimes, students will come and devotees will come and tell me that, Mataji, I'm so, I just want to confess to you that such a bad thought has come into my mind. I'm feeling so ashamed of the fact that this thought came to me. And our advice to them always is that, you are not your mind. Remember, it's the mind that generated the thought. So similarly, when we are talking about desires, desire, what is a desire? Desire is a thought.
Yeah.
If you're having a side conversation, if you can mute yourself so that I don't lose my concentration. So, because Krishna Katha comes from Krishna, and I have to be alert to catch it, right? So so till death, these things, these desires are going to be there, but these desires are not you. However, the reality this verse is telling us is that these desires will always be there for us, right? But you are not this desire. However, what we have to do as a soul, and in the 3rd chapter, we had read the hierarchy, right? Lowest is the dull matter. Above the dull matter are the
senses.
Correct. Above the senses is the
Mind.
mind. Above the
Intelligence.
mind.
Intelligence.
And above the intelligence is the
soul.
Soul.
and above the soul is the
Super soul.
super soul, right? So that hierarchy is there. So if somebody lower than you is presenting some things, presenting some desire, right? You have complete powers not to act on it, right? And you are defined by your actions and not by your desires. Okay? So now what do? We are in a very hopeless situation. We are in this body. We have got these senses which are gathering all kinds of information from this beautiful world, presenting it to the mind. Mind is getting agitated, presenting desires in front of us. What do we do? What do we do with these desires? Do we go out like Dhruva Maharaj and start slashing? Like every desire is like a yaksha, I'm going to kill all of them, right? And at one point in time, what did Dhruva Maharaj think? Like, oh, I don't know, these yakshas are dubious. They can come in any form, right? They can disappear and then suddenly appear, which is exactly what happened, right? Suddenly he sees a thunderstorm coming from them because they attacked him from overhead. So then fighting, if at all you have to fight, right? If you at all you have to fight, there won't be, your fight will not be that I have conquered it. I have conquered the fact that from now onwards, my mind does not come up with bad thoughts. The mind will be stimulated by external world. And there's a lot of stimulus coming from the external world for the mind to start thinking of nasty and naughty things, right? But our war on these desires is like a war of attrition. So what is war of attrition, right? In the war of attrition, what you do when you're fighting with somebody, right? When you're fighting with somebody, you will use a strategy. You'll use a strategy so that the opponent gets weaker and weaker and weaker, right? So that's why when enemies wanted to come and attack. So in the olden days, the whole city used to be inside a fort, right? The whole city used to live inside a fort. And the fort was surrounded by water, right? And then there would be a bridge, a drawbridge kind of a thing that would go over the water so that you could cross over, go to other places, other villages, other towns, do your business, come back like that, right? So when an enemy wanted to attack the fort, the first thing what they would do, they would burn the bridge. So what's going to happen if you're inside a fort and the bridge is burned? What are some of the things that can happen?
You cannot escape.
Okay.
You're stuck in the fort.
I'm fine. What's wrong with being stuck in the fort? What am I going to miss if there is no bridge?
Survival will be very difficult, Mataji, because there will be no food, nothing.
Correct, right? So survival is, so what they're doing is that just by cutting the bridge off, how long can they live without food? Some food they might be there having at home. Some days they can go without food. Everybody's not Dhruva Maharaj, right? To live without food for 6 months. And so slowly, your opponent will get weak. So by cutting off the supply. So what we need to do in our case also is to make the enemy weak. Fight the battle for war of attrition on our desires. Okay. So one is that cut off the supply. Don't watch this, don't watch that, don't watch television, don't watch movies, unnecessary thing, right? Vachu vegam, there's a lot of vachu vegam going on around us. Television is constantly speaking, right? To us. Somebody, jokingly calls the television as Putana. So Putana, why do they call it Putana? Is that the Putana, the Rakshashi Putana, when she was asked by her brother to go and kill Krishna. So she flew in the night, she flew over the air and then entered. So Putna the Rakshashi enters from the air into your home, and then she comes as a very beautiful lady, and these Rajvashi, they were like so innocent. They were thinking, oh, she's a demigoddess, and then allow her to come in and then give the baby to her and all that kind of stuff, right? So so she comes through the airway, right, to the air passage, to the skyways. Similarly, the television also does the same thing, right? Whatever the television catches comes from the air into your home, and then, like an innocent thing, the television just captures everything that is there. It captures your mind, gives you suggestions and things like that. So we should also fight that war of attrition. So number one, verbally try to cut off the supply. Don't entertain these thoughts at all, like that, right? And then if you continue to, one is not entertain, other is to ignore, right? If you continue to not act on all these kinds of crazy thoughts that the mind comes up with, right? So mind also works on mind is a very nice computer. It works on algorithms or on rules, right? And it has got memory. So nowadays you must have noticed that there is a lot of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
That you are sitting on Google and you are typing an email, and it finishes off your sentences, right, for you. So how does it know how to finish off the sentences? Because it has been gathering data about you, reading all the emails that you wrote. So now it knows that, okay, you always sign off as your servant. So the moment you say your, it might prompt and say servant, like that. So it works on algorithms. It's remembering, and it knows what to do and what to suggest. Same thing mind also does. So there are algorithms in the mind. So mind will capture and say, okay, last time I asked her to go and have ice cream while she was on a diet, she did not. So next time, mind might not present the same idea with as much frequency, right? It happens to us while we are sitting on a browser, right? Things start popping up on the sides or the margins of the browser. And there would be it was so funny that several years ago when I was a completely novice in this area, I went to Amazon.com and I was looking for something to buy. I don't know what it was, something. It's so long ago. But anyway, and then the same day I was doing some work on the internet and I was browsing, and then suddenly on the left-hand side of the screen, it said, hey, this thing, for example, let's say I was buying an iPhone as an example. So hey, iPhone now, $720, something like that. And I was like, oh, I'm so lucky. I was just looking for this and how to buy an iPhone, and then wow. And now I'm so lucky that this ad popped up at the same time to tell me that it's now off 50%. I didn't even realize that, they capture all your movements and everything that you do on the browser. They capture it and say, okay, she was looking for computer, looking for iPhones 2 hours ago. So now let me position this ad. So that's how they do it. So that's what the mind also does. That's what it did last time. I'm going to present something. Right? So our war on the mind, has got to be the war of attrition. We have to exhaust the mind by completely ignoring whatever they did, not listening to whatever they are suggesting that we want to do, right? And desires will come, and temptations will come. Transgressions are going to happen all the time with us, right? So I'm going to show you a slide deck that I just put together based on some of my learnings. Let me bring that up here. So have you ever been tempted in your lives?
Oh my.
Yes, Madhuri.
Unlimited number of times.
Unlimited number of times. Okay. Yeah.
Abhay, when are you not tempted? That's the question.
Yeah.
When are you not tempted? Good observation.
Yeah.
Good observation. Yeah. So let me share my screen here. Tell me whether you can see this deck. Can you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Good. So there is temptation. Okay. So you are on a diet. Doctor has prescribed that you have healthy food, apples, fruits, avocado, lettuce. And then the temptation comes, right? There's vegetable burgers, there's fries, French fries, there's milkshake, there's fryams, all kinds of, donuts. So these temptations will come our way all the time. Today's verse is telling us they will come into your life all the time, right? And transgression is that you will break the rule. The rule of dieting was only these kind of things. So when the temptation comes, we break the rule, we transgress, right? So this soḍhuṁ, this toleration, this tolerance, that is something that comes between temptation and transgression. Today's verse is saying that it is going to happen, right? Temptation urges come, we transgress. That's how we get there all the time, right? For example, in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, there was urge from his mother, he got angry. So he transgressed, wanted this, wanted that, right? Now, how not to get there is to bring in the tolerance, right? Which again was later on demonstrated by Dhruva Maharaj, right? Standing on one leg, praying all the time, not eating, ignoring the urges of the stomach, nose, like that. So the question then comes is that, well, Dhruva Maharaj tolerated, but tell me, how do I increase my capacity to tolerate? Because as it looks to me right now, I don't think I'm able to tolerate anything. The temptations come and I transgress. The temptations come and I transgress. And then it's like, oh, I'm so sorry I did it. Oh, I'm such a fallen soul. Oh, I'm such a low devotee. Like that, right? So 2 ways in which you can increase your capacity to tolerate all these temptations that are going to come, right? śaknotīhaiva soḍhuṁ, prāk śarīra-vimokṣaṇāt. Number 1, by cultivating knowledge. And then second is by devotion spiritually. So how do you think my toleration capacity is going to increase if I cultivate knowledge? How is that going to help me?
Knowledge will give us whether this is good or bad, will give all the qualities, like you said, avocado or apple. So then mind will go there and then.
Correct. So first is to intellectually, yeah, very good. First is to intellectually understand the situation that we are in, right? And in the verse, the verse that we did last time, what did it say? Yehi sansparsha jab hoga, dukkha yonaya evate, adi antavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. So what do the intelligent people know? Those who are intellectually gathering the information, they have gathered this information that this sense pleasure that I seem to be getting comes only from the contact. Yehi samsparsha, only from the contact of the senses with the sense object. Like dukkha yonaya evate, they will always end in dukkha, always. There is no hope of happiness in this material world. There will always be unhappiness, this way or that. Dukkha yonaya evate, adi antavanta. There is a beginning and then there is an end to it. Nateshu ramate buddha. So that's why those who are intelligent will not indulge in these kind of activities. So we intellectually try to understand by reading the scriptures. That's what the scriptures are telling you all the time, isn't it? Right? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarve gunes tatra samasate suraha harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena stidhavato vahihi. So what it says is that yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana, the one who does bhakti of the Lord, he gets all the good qualities of the suras, of the demigods. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadguna, but one who is not a bhakt of the Lord, it says, manorathena sthit dhavato bahi. Manorath. What is manorath?
Mind.
The mind, the chariot of the mind. The chariot moves, goes here and there, right? And takes the driver and the passengers here and there, right? So manorathena sthit. So a person who's not a devotee of the Lord sits in this chariot of the mind. Dhavato bahihi, and
Wherever
runs
it goes.
outside, outwards, towards the outer world, instead of going inside and trying to find the happiness inside, they will go outside. Right? And that is what the mind is. To understand that intellectually, that this is what is happening. This is what the mind is doing to me. This is the mind is presenting a desire. But I am the soul. I have the power of veto. I can veto and I can say no to these things. Right? That power is there with me. Right? So that is why, let me share my screen. Right? So cultivating knowledge, when we assimilate scriptural knowledge about how material pleasures are short-lived and counterproductive, they are counterproductive. The resulting intellectual conviction boosts our capacity to tolerate impure temptations. Right? Your capacity. So you should do adhyan. You should read the sastras like you are doing here. You're coming to this class. You're sitting here, right? So I might not be able to control the mind because the mind's job is to think, right? I might not be able to control the mind from creating these kinds of thoughts there, right? But I do, by reading and intellectually understanding what this whole thing is about, I am at a higher level, I'm at a higher capacity to be able to tolerate and not succumb to them, right? Not succumb to these urges. So that is one thing. Second is that, second thing that we said was that, by cultivating knowledge intellectually and devotion, by spiritual devotion. So how does devotion come into this picture here? How is devotion going to help me with these urges that are coming to me every day, every minute, every second? How is devotion to Krishna?
Your mind will be engaged in that service, in devotion. So then it's its own good here and there and looking for some sense gratification.
Very correct. Very correct. Because now when these desires come, right, they are torturous, they're vega. They come with a force, right? Sometimes somebody's forcing you. Imagine you're sitting on a sofa, somebody's moving you, shaking you like that. Do it, do it, do it now. Go get up, get that gallon of ice cream, let's finish it off. Next day, same time, it'll come back again, right? If the gallon of ice cream is not at home, you can jump into a car and go buy it from some 24-hour shop and then eat it. Like that. So the urges are going to come again and again and again. So we need to divert it. So how will we divert it? And that's what people do. I'm not allowed to eat ice cream, so I divert my attention, start eating something else. And then that becomes, my slave. Kāma-dhinam katina katita palita durnideshas tesham jata maina karuna natripo na pashanti utsrejaitam yadi yadipate tam satikshva atmadase. So what this verse says is, I jumbled up the last two lines. What it says is, Kāma-dhinam. All these days, I was adheen. I was a slave to all these desires. And these desires, they are very bad masters. They do not give you relief even for 1 second. They are slave drivers. They will drive you all the time. But now that I have taken your shelter, right? And so taking the shelter, when you are taking shelter of Krishna, what happens is that Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya. So if you are going to say that desires are going to come, don't do anything about the desire, don't do anything about the desire, don't do everything. After some time you'll be so miserable because desires are very strong. They will continue to relentlessly push you till you succumb. Right? So what we have to do, and it's a very nice wording, is that, and we don't have to make them lose the battle. I'm going to be in a battle like Dhruv Maharaj with the Yakshas. I'm going to be in a battle against my desire. I'm going to win over them. No, lose them, lose. Just get rid of them, drop them, ignore them. They will go away. Lose them like that, right? So when I'm doing devotional service and when these desires come, I have got a Rasavarjam param drishtva nivartate. I have got a higher taste towards which I can focus my attention, right? And then we know that these senses are getting attracted to sense objects, right? Mind is also a sense. Why don't I attract the mind to something which is very attractive and which is the most attractive thing in this world? So Kumal Radhe, I'm expecting a verse from you. Why is Krishna most attractive?
Because he has all the 6 opulences.
There you go. Right? So where do a sense say eyes go for beauty? Yeah, right? Nose goes for smell, ear goes for this. Krishna's got everything, mind. So that is why our mind. So if you are focusing your mind, if you're doing devotional service, that when these urges come to you, you have got something better, param drishtva, something higher to relate to and to go towards. Right? Classic example is from more recent 500 years ago.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
What happened to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What temptations did he see? "500 years ago. Somebody from his pastimes, but not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody troubles him. Haridas Thakur. Right?
Oh.
Right? There was temptation standing in front of him whole night. He had something better to do. And that is, he was chanting the names of the Lord. Right? So, so that is how devotional service actually helps us overcome these. So as long as we are mentally sound in our understanding that these desires are going to be with us till the end of our life. So number one, when a bad desire comes, we will not be alarmed by that. But now that we are scripturally armed, right? In our battlefield with the desires, we have our arms are spiritual. Our arms are our devotional practice. Our arms are the 4 regulative principles that we are following. Those are the weapons with which we will be able to fight the war of attrition, where you will slowly make your enemy go weaker and weaker and weaker. And that makes it easy for you to tolerate and tolerate and tolerate, because it becomes habit, right? And it happens like that in office, right? Suddenly you have a new boss and the new boss shouts, gives a lot of work and all that. We are so agitated day one, right? Can't do anything. You do the work. After some time, we learn to tolerate. And after some time, it's like, fine, I know. Sometimes you get bosses like that. Life becomes easy again. And that is why from there, the happiness comes. The happiness comes from the fact that these things are not able to bother you. They will come, you will look at them, objectively, you will let them pass. A bad thought is coming, you let the bad thought pass, you will not act on it. And that is our shield.
It will not tempt you.
Yeah. So between temptation and transgression, which happens very quickly, if you build in the toleration in between, so T, temptation, transgression, in between tolerance. If you just learn how to tolerate and say, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. And one of the ways is also to cheat the mind, right? Cheat the mind by saying, okay, I'll do it like Haridas Thakur did. Okay, I'm going to do it, but 2 hours later. Okay, I'm going to have that extra bowl of ice cream, but 2 hours later. After 2 hours later, after some time, like, 2 hours, I'm getting bored, like that. So I'll stop here and open up for any questions or comments or anything you took from the class here today. Thank you, Veera Mataji, for joining.
Temptation to control and desires will come. So we have to control, and it is not only I am getting, like everyone is having those, and once you try to, like, if you let your mind know that it is there and you have to just procrastinate, like Vaisheshika Maharaj always says. So you will then become happy, like you gave example of boss. Once you know that, okay, this will happen with me. And then all the Dhruv Maharaj also, like, has to, like, they are so great devotees, and so you feel little bit peace. Otherwise you feel so bad in yourself that you are the one who is getting all the you don't have any tolerance. But Sati Katha we heard, Dhruv Maharaj, and then after being such a great devotee, he was he's he didn't ask anything from Krishna when he come. Then also later he became sad by the killing of his own brother, stepbrother. So yeah, so you feel good, and then you have to learn that if you vacho vegam, you have to control your temptations.
Correct, correct. And we saw that, we also saw in the story of Chitraketu, right? Chitraketu was unhappy because he didn't have a child. So that desire was there, right? And then he has a child, Harshashoka. Child dies, and then we see his lamentation and his behavior, right? Later on, he becomes a devotee, and then Parvati curses her. And he accepts the curse, tolerates it completely, because he had risen to that level where he's able to do these kind of things. And in Bhagavatam there, it says that, Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bhivyati swarga apavarganarkeshu apitulyat darshana. They say that those who are surrendered to the Lord, for them, they do not fear anything. For them, whether it's swarg or apavarg, it's heavenly, not heavenly, it's the same for them, or hell. Because all that they want to do is do devotional service, and that you can do anywhere like that. And we see stories, of that also in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So the urges, like I was saying, will always be there. You can't avoid them. Example of that is Vishwamitra, right? He had closed his eyes. I can't see anything. Thousands of years he did the prayers, and then just one sense, the ear, right? Menka's ankle bells, he heard like that, right? So when all the kind of these things happened, then Subaru Rishi, in another one mentioned, Muni, Subaru mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, Are Baba, Bahar to, outside is difficult. I'll go under the water. So no Urvashi is going to come under the water. And then what does he see under the water? He sees two fishes mating. And then his desires are aroused. He comes back, marries 50 women. So these kind of things are going to happen anytime. Yeah. Let's see, Sutapa.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. It's a beautiful class. And I have a question, like I don't know whether it's related with today's verse, but the thing is that we have temptations in everyday's life. Like I have seen so many people to buy like clothes. Maybe they don't need it. They have plenty of clothes in every day, but they are buying like very small thing. It's not that it's very expensive. It's not like that. But they are buying like every week or alternative days or something. So that is also one kind of temptation, and that is also urges. So how to control that? Because they may need it, they have to go to work or so. So that means how we can control that, Madhavi? If it is really needed to buy like so many clothes or so many like shoes or maybe so many purses.
Yeah, like they say, there is enough for, in this world, there is enough for every man's need, but not enough for a single man's greed. So that is greed. There is an urge to buy. And there's a very nice story of a devotee. She was from a very rich family, and you're talking about shoes and purses, right? She used to buy diamonds. So she was from such a rich family, and she used to buy the diamonds. And so this urge was there, right? And so one way, and I was just saying here, right? Intellectually understand. Now, to be able to intellectually understand this, you should be a lucky person to be exposed to Srila Prabhupada's books, to be exposed to devotee association. That only you will learn, right? Otherwise, you go to kitty parties, what are you going to learn? That another Prada bag is out and then you should get it immediately, right? A better, bigger, like that, right? So intellectually understanding it and then doing devotional service. Those are the only two things that are going to help. But the process will be slow for some people, will be fast for some of the other people there. So this devotee who used to buy diamonds, when she came into Krishna consciousness, that urge to buy was still there, but she was directing that urge towards Radharani. And so she would go and buy necklaces for Radharani. So that joy that you get from purchasing something is satisfied. But what are you doing? You're also using it, engaging it in the service of Radharani. So slowly, what happens, Sutapa, is that through charitable activities, like, okay, donate your own clothes. People find it very difficult to donate their own clothes and own shoes, right? You go and stand in front of the wardrobe and you're like, okay, let me get rid of 20 pairs of shoes that I have. And then you pick up the first black one. Oh, but this goes so well with that other one. Yeah, what will I wear if I wear that? Like, ideally, you should say, okay, let me throw away the shoe and let me throw away that dress also. But no. I will keep the shoe because I want to keep that dress. So this is how it is entangling. This material world is entangling like this, right? And so slowly through charitable acts, through giving donations, through eating prasadam, to doing seva, slowly, there's a gradual process. It's a long path, but it is still a path. And very interesting thing is that sometimes we might fall down, right? But like, Kennedy said that, take every failure in your life as a stepping stone to success. So some people even use the other extreme. They say there is no falling down. You fall up in the sense that every time you do something wrong or transgress, there is always a learning that is involved there. And that learning will prevent you from going and doing the same thing over and over again, right? So one thing to be cautious of is that you should avoid the association of people who are indulging in these things, right? Sometimes due to pressure, social pressures and all that, you have to go meet them, dine with them and all that, but do not become same in the mind as them. Do not agree and be influenced by their decisions. If you are different, dare to be different. Yeah. Remember,
Yes.
we are in the majority.
Yes, Mataji. But when I approached them, they told but we are going to work every day. We need clothes. We need to buy. So then
and
what
that is fine. Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, let them buy. Let them buy. Maybe there is a need. Maybe their job demands they wear clothes. But then, of course, there's a line there everywhere, right? And also sometimes I have seen friends who said that when I was growing up, having 45, there used to be cassettes where you could hear the music. And so people had 250 cassettes. Having 250 music cassettes was a big thing. And so hoarding, buying, the latest cassette comes, you have to buy it and put it in your part of your collections. And then one day, he was my friend, he said that one day he just, took all those cassettes and he threw them away. So sometimes, the mind gets full. As long as desires are there, curbing them also unnecessarily is not there. But you did your duty, you told them. Those words will resonate in their mind. Someday they will realize it. Might not happen immediately, but you did your duty, you told, right? But you don't copy and imitate them. Yeah.
When someone tells us something, then everyone finds the mind gives a justification for it, right? So when we are talking to someone, everyone will try to say, hey, I have a valid reason to do it, unless they really have that. Or as you put two main things, right? The knowledge and the bhakti. Unless they're in that mood, I don't know if our talks will go through in the right way.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Anthony.
Yeah. So, that is how it is. I mean, that's why you will find that so many people are there. that is how you are going to suffer in this world by continuously indulging, or you're going to be relieved by using, I'm just bringing up a verse from Bhagavad-gita. That's why I'm a little bit distracted. And I found it. Can we share this here? Yeah. Bhagavad-gita 2.44. Bhogashvarya prasaktanam tayapa hrita chetasam vyavasatyatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. Lord is saying, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Right? Samadhi means fixed mind. The Vedic dictionary, the Nirukti, says, Samyak adhiyatesmin atma tatma yathatmyam. When the mind is fixed for understanding the self, it is said to be in Samadhi. Samadhi is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment and bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. Prabhupada has casted the verdict, they are condemned. They will go through that. And once in a while, Krishna also says in the 16th chapter, right? I perpetually cast them in planets where they will suffer and continue to be indulged in these material activities. But then Prabhupada explains there that some kind soul, which will be a devotee, will go out of his way, like how Prabhupada came out of his way, right? I mean, he was preaching to the hippies. What sort of life standards did the hippies have, right? They were naradhams, right? And Prabhupada gave them what? How did Prabhupada bring them to devotional service?
Prasadam.
Prasadam. There you go. Right? Because that jivya vegam is there. So he made the use of that jivya. Gave them prasadam. So that's what we can do, You can go to your friends who are buying too many clothes. You can just say, hey, I brought this nice thing. And it could be a super tasty thing. I made a nice cake for you. Well, it's prasadam cake. So they'll eat it. They'll get purified. There's no other way, no other way, no other way. Like that, yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? I think we have our new little guest here, Miss Keshvi. Is she still here with us?
I like the point that we have to cheat our mind. Hare Krishna, Keshvi.
Yeah, we have to cheat our minds, correct? Yeah. Otherwise, the mind will cheat you.
And I think that will only happen with Krishna's, like if we walk towards Krishna, probably he'll help us to overcome our desires.
Yes.
You also very nicely put about it. Example of Vishwamitra, right? Like Menka, like even such a realized soul gets into such desires, but then it's a lesson also, right? When you fall, it's a lesson for going up, learning and growing next time.
Correct. And to know that we should not think that we are foolproof and we are safe just because I'm chanting that I'm safe. And that's why these stories are there in Bhagavatam to tell us that, even such exalted souls can be faced with temptations at that stage. Bharat Maharaj, right? Bharat Maharaj left everything, beautiful wives, children, kingdom. He left everything and went to the forest. And then deer. He goes after a deer. As a king, he would have killed so many deers. But this deer caught him. Like that, yeah. Any other thoughts? Where is Kathy today?
Kathy is cooking. Kathy? Yeah, Haribol. Did she say Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna, Keshvi.
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Kathy. Good to see you.
Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Kathy.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Garima Mataji. So good to see you.
She said Haribol. She was singing nice like this Haribol. But the moment I start with the video, it stops.
She's camera shy.
Yeah, Haribol.
Yeah, she is camera.
Haribol, Keshi, Haribol.
हरिबोल तो कही दे बेटा. श्रद्धा माता जी अपना घरे आया था ना.
Hari
Okay, उसी जो श्रद्धा माता जी ने कहे हरे कृष्णा माता जी, how are you today? How are you today, Mata?
We are so happy that you are back, Mataji.
And recovered.
Recovered.
Yeah.
I'm very happy, Mataji. So, and you gave the news on 12:02, starting of Ekadasi. That was a very. Classes
Is it?
happened you gave it at midnight, right?
Oh, yeah.
You said, okay, the
Yeah.
classes is happening and you are feeling much better. So that was good news.
Yeah. Tomorrow, yesterday, there are multiple things happening. There's Janmashtami planning is happening, and then Yatra is also happening. So a lot of things going on all together. So there's a lot, yeah.
Glad you
Yeah.
are back.
Thank you, Aruni. Yeah.
Welcome back, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I should take leave. It's 7:26 or late in the night for all of you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you
And
so
those
much.
of you on
Thank you.
10:26 for us.
Patitanam
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Gaur Premanande. Thank you for the best class, Shraddha Mataji.
Yeah.
As always.
Yes, thank you, Mataji, for a very nice class.